Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Assalamu-alaikum, Jiayanu, Pakhairagale, Ni hao, Chunashumme, Washmale, Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Hale Shumachatore, Ahlan Wasalan, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabia, Balli Kare, Hosh Kalden, and I was Sion. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague, who happens to be Miss Hajra Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and a very happy Friday to each and every one of you. And we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajra, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for introducing me. So Shahzad, I wanted to talk about Twitter having an edit feature, but I think I can discuss this news sometime else because I see that you're wearing a different flag. Why is that so?
Exactly. So, I really want to kind of talk about it. And, when we talk about Pakistan and Germany, to be very precise about it, just last year in 2021, we were lucky enough over here at PT World to actually kind of celebrate the 70 years of relationship in between Germany and Pakistan. But not just that, when we talk about Germany, obviously a lot of Pakistanis, if I have to share a number, more than 70,000 Pakistanis reside in Germany and they have their household. They're very happy. It's because of the fact that, to live in a part of Europe where they're more developed. And when we talk about it, ladies and gentlemen, imagine that, we have been going through all of these relations, because when we talk about such diplomatic relations that date back in 1951. But not just that, the cooperation actually begin in 1961. And when we talk about imports and exports, so imagine, so Germany sends us stuff worth $1.8 billion. This is a figure which I'm sharing from 2 years ago, and Pakistan at the same time shares their export of worth $1.1 billion, where we talk about medical goods, leather, footwear, sports. So we have all of this industry. But when we talk about Germany, obviously they are helping us with renewable energy sources. Not just that, a lot of people are going over there for PhDs. Alongside that, a lot of students still study over there, and they really want to go over there too as well. But not just that, in addition to that, when we talk about Germany and Pakistan relationship, the best part is that the family ties they have over there are actually similar to the ties over here. I have a surprise for you and for our audiences out there, why I'm talking about Pakistan and Germany today. But before we do so, we really need to take you towards what's happening all over the world, right?
True. Moving on to our top story. So first, it's about Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. While calling the rehabilitation and reconstruction of the flood-hit areas formidable challenges, says that the continued support, solidarity and assistance from the United States was crucial for this purpose. The Prime Minister, talking to senior policy advisor to U.S. Secretary of the State Derek, who called on him, said the government was fully engaged in the rescue and relief efforts. The Prime Minister told the foreign dignitary that over 33 million people have been affected, more than 1,300 lives lost, and immeasurable damage was caused to agriculture, livestock, property and critical infrastructure. He also cautioned about the likely outbreak of the waterborne diseases and underlined that Pakistan was committed to deepen and widen its ties, especially in the area of security, health, climate change, trade and investment, and he emphasized the need for a constructive and sustained engagement between both the countries. That's really great that people are talking on the climate change and they are moving forward to take action on this, because we direly need that. And in addition to this conversation, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is also coming to Pakistan today, because he said that Pakistan's monsoon are on steroids and we need to do more, because today it's Pakistan, next year it can be some other country as well. So
exactly.
Yes.
And in addition to that, so what we experienced this year, we cannot really be sure that it's not going to happen the next year or the year after that. So the international community really needs to come together. So the Secretary General, thank you very much for taking it as a priority. Thank you very much for coming down to Pakistan. We really look forward to having some amazing talks with which the international community can come together and help through what Pakistan is suffering from. But not just that, now we really need to move to UK, where obviously the longest serving monarch, the Queen Elizabeth II, has passed away peacefully. So talking about that, ladies and gentlemen, she died at Balmoral, aged 96, after reigning for 70 years. In a statement, Buckingham Palace said that the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral on Thursday. The Queen came to the throne in 1952 and witnessed enormous social change. With her death, her eldest son Charles, the former Prince of Wales, will lead the country in mourning as the new king and head of state for 14 Commonwealth realms. Queen Elizabeth II, who was also the world's oldest and longest-serving head of state, came to the throne following the death of her father, King George, on February 6, 1952. She was crowned in June the following year. The first televised coronation was a foretaste of a new world in which the lives of the royals were to become increasingly scrutinized by the media. The nation is in mourning for next 10 days to mark the passing of the Queen after an extraordinary 70 years of the throne. The national mourning period will culminate in a final public farewell at Westminster Abbey in central London.
Indeed, I think it's a tough time for the Britain, and we have expressed our condolences to the British people. But Shehzad, as a matter of fact, did you know that the people who inhabit the area of the England are from the tribe called Anglo-Saxons, and they were first there in the what we now call the Germany. They were from the Bavaria, and that's how they spread, and they had a massive influence in shaping the European identity, the European culture, and the European history. And matter of the fact is that the base of the English is also Germanic. So why am I talking about so much about the Germany?
Yeah, or probably me too as well.
Right.
You know, so for all of those people who are out there today, we're very lucky because when we talk about Pakistan-Germany relationships, obviously I've given quite a lot away. But not just that, you know, since I mentioned that, you know, they're working on renewable energy sources, helping Pakistan on developing and making sure that we kind of have a safe transition onto that, which is the need of the hour. Alongside that, good governance. When we talk about good governance, obviously healthcare facilities. And when we talk about businesses, it actually entails vocational training in it too.
And did you know about the education that German has a free tuition? There's zero tuition there, and that's why a lot of people select Germany because they do not have to pay the tuition fee. Of course, there's some private universities that are charging, but mostly they're free of cost.
So obviously it's the
That's
71st year of our diplomatic relations in between Pakistan and Germany, and in addition to that, obviously since Pakistan is going through some severe floods, so a lot of aid has come from Germany too, and you know, for all of those countries who've contributed towards Pakistan and how we were suffering, thank you very much. But today we're very lucky that Alhamdulillah now, when the new ambassador, the new German ambassador, His Excellency, came down to Pakistan on the 8th of August, he actually decided to be on our show. Alhamdulillah. So it's going to be his first ever TV appearance. We're very lucky to have him over here, and we'll certainly have a wonderful conversation, you know, so stay tuned for that. Without any further ado, we're very lucky that for his first ever television appearance, he picked up PTV World and World this morning. It's an honor for us, for our entire team. Thank you very much, sir, once again. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let me introduce you His Excellency, Mr. Alfred Grannas, the German ambassador himself. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's an honor to have you over here. And to be very honest, you know, taking advantage of this opportunity, I would certainly want to know in the first place, how was it for you when you got to know that you will be coming to Pakistan as the ambassador?
I was actually very thrilled because it's an amazing country, a wonderful country, fantastic country with fantastic people. And people, we always also in Germany, people whose resilience and whose resolve and whose courage we always admire. So I felt myself actually very lucky to be able to come here. And another thing I was sure of was it won't be boring.
Lovely introduction, sir. But I would really want to ask you that since Germany is contributing a lot to the aid, especially when the flooding is here, and Pakistan has seen such monster monsoon, the amount of the water that has just came in, we do not have the climate resilient cities which can absorb that sort of water. And talking about water, I would like to ask you, number one, what is Germany doing when it comes to the aid relief activities in Pakistan? And secondly, we saw that Germany has River Rhine, Pakistan has River Indus, and rivers occupy a very special place in our national imagination. So Rhine is shrinking and Indus is over-bloated, over-flooded, and they're manifestation of the same ugly phenomena called climate change. How can we cooperate on that, sir?
Yes, let me start with your first question. German aid or German relief aid at the moment is at around 18 million euros. So it's about 220 times in rupees, but 4 billion roughly. The way we do that is a bit different from from others. So you don't see many German flags, and there are no planes coming, no packages with German flags, because what we do and decided to do is that we fund professional humanitarian organizations. We give them the money beforehand, so when a crisis breaks out, they can start immediately with our money. Wow. So, for example, the Central Emergency Response Fund from the United Nations, which is active here, 20% of its money is German. From the World Health Organization, the Emergency Relief Fund, they're also active here in providing medical aid and sanitation aid to people. 37% of it is German money. So there's no German flag on it, but it is, it's our contribution. And then we have a few projects with the German Red Cross, which is working with the Pakistani Red Crescent relief to help 10,000 families, and another project to help 1,000 families through the next few months. So all in all, and then we do a few things in food security. So all in all, it amounts to about 18 million euros at the moment. But this will not be the last. Because the crisis, unfortunately, as I said, is going on. True. So I'm sure more will be coming, and more as appropriate and as needed. So that what I can assure you and the Pakistani people is that we will stay with you in this dire time, and we will do or contribute our share to helping out in this crisis. Coming to the other things, of course, that is a more long-term question, but there also, if you want to say, fortunately, we already have the cooperation programs ongoing in the field of renewable energy and yes. Energy transition, where we would want to contribute to Pakistan, which has a huge potential for renewable energy. Look at the sun, which is normally shining, and then wind and things, so that there's a huge potential that should be developed, and we are active in that, and we will, in the first place, also first try to contribute to transmission efficiency and grid efficiency, because as you all know, renewable energy and the grid and the management of the grid is a bit more difficult than with traditional power generation. Exactly. So that is very important that you have that in place. So we are active there, and it is one of our and also my priorities for the next few years to deepen and further and develop that cooperation there.
And it is the need of the hour too as well, because when we talk about Germany, obviously you happen to be from a country, Your Excellency, where when we talk about technological advancements, they're somewhere on another level. A lot of my friends work over there. One of my friends works for GM. And then I happen to be a car fanatic myself, so may it be Mercedes, may it be BMW, everybody's making electric cars, smart motorways are coming up. So it's great. But when we start to talk about the history of our diplomatic relations, taking them a little further, because since you've recently came into Pakistan as well, so renewable energy resource might be one. But there might be a lot of untapped areas where you certainly might be thinking, and Pakistan might be thinking, that we might come together as a JV joint venture, or we really can help each other in different areas. What do you think can be those areas? Because for the past 70 years, whatever we have explored, I have shared it with our audiences in 46 different countries. What further do you think we can do on our diplomatic fronts?
I think we are good partners already, and diplomatically I think we are cooperating very well. We are obviously, not always, but very often on the same line of the same opinion when it comes to how to look at international questions and issues. So that's one area where there's fruitful cooperation. On the other side, of course, trade can always improve. True. Because you mentioned the numbers, that is fine, but there can be more. True. And I think one of the things that also we should probably look at trying to cooperate, also for Pakistan, very important, is probably diversification of exports. Because if you look at now at the numbers, what we are importing from Pakistan, 80% is textiles. Yep. This is wonderful and is very important, and of course also the footballs. The football with which we will win the World Cup will come from Pakistan. Yes. So that is of course very important. But there are also other areas in agriculture where we could do probably more in terms, as there is a huge potential. Lovely. We'll have to get in, not trying to do everything, because then nothing will be achieved, but focusing on a few areas there where we could do more.
Right, and when you talk about, sir, the bilateral cooperation, and Shahzad very aptly mentioned, so Germany has the Climate Action Act where the government wants to decrease the carbon emissions by 50% by 2030, right? But then there are voices within the Europe that are advocating for the coal-based energy because of the energy crisis that is brewing there. How do you see that? Do you feel such kind of voices can be a major influence in our cooperation against the climate change?
If it goes for Europe, they have to, or for Germany especially, they have to differentiate between two things. The very, very immediate one, where we, as you all know, have a little bit of a crisis because we don't want and don't get gas from Russia anymore, so we need to do something for the immediate future, for the next few months, for the next winter, which will otherwise be very uncomfortable. So that is one thing. So there is more coal-fired energy generation. There are also from nuclear power plants which should have been shut down, will probably be at least in reserve, but that is very immediate. That's until next year. This will not, shall not, and will not affect our climate goals and our emission reduction targets. It will not, and we will not spare no effort to reach those targets, and I think the ambitions are even greater. Such that our aim actually is to be climate neutral by 2045, and I am confident that we will do everything to reach that goal. And of course also, when it then comes to cooperation opportunities, as already mentioned, with Pakistan, there are a lot of opportunities, as said, because Pakistan has a huge potential for itself, which we will be happy to contribute, because it does not help if Germany becomes, or it does help, but it does help little if Germany becomes climate neutral and everybody else cannot go in the same direction.
Exactly, and in addition to that, since I've mentioned before as well that how much I love cars, so there's obviously a Euro standard, and they always make sure that your car is actually not below that standard in terms of carbon emissions too. But now, sir, coming back to where, since you, alhamdulillah, are now in Pakistan, you might be enjoying your time, and that's certainly what we want. From our perspective, how much more do you think that we can explore when we talk about our diplomatic ties and relationship? Because you said that the potential is there. Let's highlight a few areas where you personally think, as the ambassador from Germany, Your Excellency, that these are the particular areas. For example, you spoke about textile. We can talk about fruit exports too as well. So we totally, because we are an agrarian society, our economy is dependent on agriculture. So there's quite a lot that we can offer, because we do have the most amazing mangoes over here, or bananas, and because when we go to Europe, we certainly don't get the same taste of the fruits we get over there. So, so how is it for you to taste all of those fruits, one? And number two, let's talk about a little in detail about all of those areas where we can probably help each other.
Yeah. Now, I must actually say this, there is nothing like feeling the taste of these fruits there where they come from. So once you send them elsewhere, the way you have to send them, you all know it's not the same. So
that's true too.
If you are used to having mangoes in Pakistan, if you then have them in Germany, to a certain extent it can only be a disappointment, because the taste is not the same.
Exactly, and I've gone through that myself. And but thank you very much for mentioning that, because when you're sending them, you really need to make sure that they actually go there in the same shape, and the taste really needs to be there. But most of the time it's just bland, so you're like, okay,
it's
the
bland,
mango.
It's very hairy too, right?
So you're like, the mangoes I had back in my country, are very different from the mangoes I'm having over here, and they're really expensive too. So now there's an organic industry, and then so people are selling stuff which is getting expensive every single day. So at times you really do get confused. But since you are here, so there are a few cuisines which I would want to talk about. If you have tried biryani, mutton, lassi, probably, so have you tried any of these?
Yes, of course. I've already been diving into the Pakistani food. The highlight, I must actually admit, was this. I don't remember how it's called, but it was this Baluchi lamb.
Baluchi lamb,
It's called saji,
that's it. That was the highlight so far.
There's
because
lots of cholesterol in that, very high protein.
No, I don't think so that there's a lot of cholesterol, because number one, the way it's cooked, I believe that there's no oil used, and you just steam it all day long, and you make sure that But yes, obviously, since it's mutton,
Yeah.
obviously
Mutton
there
obviously.
can be a little bit of cholesterol in it.
True. So, sir, as Shahzad mentioned, that roughly there are 70,000 Pakistanis who are living in the Germany, and there are a lot of students who are going to Germany for their student exchange programs or for doing their own PhDs there. So, you guys have an embassy in Islamabad and a consulate in Karachi.
Yes.
But there are a lot of students, you know, who are applying to the visa to get to the Germany, and I do feel that sometimes, you know, their visa application is not processed because they're saying that our classes start in September and October, but yet their
And
visa
as soon as they got to know that you will be on the program, because we
of
updated on Twitter, people started to write to us on our inboxes as well. That's the most common application we have gotten.
Yes.
So would you want to address
so
to
would
that?
you like to expand your services in the future? What is the plan?
So, yes, I can imagine. The problem at the moment is actually that we don't have the capacity, not the infrastructure, not the room, and not the personnel. But we are building a new embassy on the
Lovely.
same premises. So then, once that is finished, sometime next year, the situation should improve, and we will also have more space for and more places to process visa applications, so it should improve. And also we have, of course, seen, because this is a development that is in that sense rather recent, so this increase in applications for student visas. So we have now really started to look into every corner of our processes to see what we can do to expedite it here and there. But to be honest, and that I'm sorry that I cannot give you a better, or not cannot pass on a better message. There are limits what we can do with trying tweaking processes here and there. So we have to see that we get a better infrastructure, which we are about to get, and then that is actually only then the problem can really be solved, or even the situation really improve. But one thing which is very important, I wanted to mention it here. If you apply for a visa and it's a long waiting period until you can go there and have an appointment, but most German universities, very important to note, offer online courses. So if you don't make it to the semester start in October, you can still start your courses and classes, and once you get your visa, you can just jump in at the stage the semester is, because this is not all do it the same way, but almost all offer that possibility. So if you don't get your visa fast enough, you still can start studying.
And I believe that that's what the motive is. The motive is to actually get education, and they have been imparting education, because when we talk about PhDs, we mentioned at the very beginning of the program that how people, ladies and gentlemen, travel to Germany, and they're doing PhDs for free too as well, thanks to the German government that they've been providing us with such facility where people can enhance their skills. But sir, in years to come, because I was reading that the number was somewhere around 4,000 to 6,000 students every single year, do you think that there will be an increase in the number of people who's going to Germany to study for PhDs?
Yes, of course, I hope, because as you said, we think that we do offer high quality education, which is not that expensive in that sense. So the combination is actually
very nice,
ideal in that sense. Yes, and for us it's good, because those people who have studied in Germany, most of them at least, have positive memories and come back with positive memories. And for Pakistan, it's good because you get people back that have an excellent education and can contribute to the development of Pakistan.
True.
That's very true. And sir, one of my friends, she happens to be a dad scholar, and she's there in the Germany, and she's a big fan of Germany. She says that they are very committed to their family values, to their community values. And I do feel we also share the same thing here in Pakistan, because we are also very family oriented, right? So what other cultural similarities have you noticed in Pakistan?
No, I must actually say, as I always say, the area in Germany I come from is from the very south, from the mountains. So this is, some people in Germany would call this a tribal area. So this is also some similarity, that we also have our tribal areas with people with even stronger family ties.
Yeah.
And as you said, this kind of that we value serious work, education, and this drive for betterment. This is something I think that also unites us in that sense.
Exactly. And sir, in addition to that, since we are talking about the culture, so for all of my friends who are in Germany, whenever I speak to them, they speak very fluent German. And they're like, you know, if you really want to make it over here in Germany, you really need to learn the language, and it's really very essential. Which makes me think, Your Excellency, that you speak very fluent English. So how did you get that mix in between? Because you obviously have to be on occasions where you certainly have to communicate in a way that the other people do understand. But is it really a necessity for people who actually go to Germany that they really need to speak German? Or there are areas where they could still survive by speaking English?
I would, as you see, I'm mulling over it. Okay, I think there's a bit of a difference in terms of English and English in Germany.
Yeah.
So if you go as a student and speak with your student friends, there won't be any problems. You don't need to speak German in that sense. In difference to Pakistan, where you can go to the supermarket and communicate in English, in Germany might be a bit of a problem if you sit in the cashier, the supermarket. So I wouldn't be that sure. And of course, there are study programs in Germany. University Germany is in English, but most of it is in German. So
Exactly.
that makes it necessary to.
So which is why, Your Excellency, what I wanted to ask was that, do you think that in days to come, we over here can have such programs where Pakistanis can learn German beforehand, before traveling, even if it's for education or work?
I think there are some offers. We have a cultural institute in Karachi, but Goethe, and in Lahore there is Annemarie Schimmel House, which is a similar kind of institution. And I think those are the institutions who can do that. And if there are, I must actually say, I don't know whether there are already commercial offers to. There must be, but but those institutions do offer that, and that of course is also one thing that you should better start learning it before you go there.
Thank you very much.
Lovely.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being with us. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to have you over here to interview and ask whatever we wanted to ask. You know, as kids of Pakistan, you know, so I still want to believe that I am a kid, you know, likewise for Hajra too. But if there's anything you want to say towards the end to our nation, to everybody who's out there, you could just look into the camera, say whatever you feel like.
No, I must actually say I'm very happy to be here. And I'm also very grateful for the very warm welcome I've received here in Pakistan. As said, an admirable country with admirable people, and I wish you all the best for the future, and of course all our deepest sympathies for the current situation, and we wish you and that you can overcome that quickly, and also, as said, we will try to contribute to that. We have, and we will continue to contribute.
And thank you very much for extending all sorts of help, sir. And you know, there might not be flags of Germany, but there are flag of Germany on our hearts too as well. So thank you very much for being with us, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much.
Once again. Good morning. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'll actually head out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere, because when you guys will come back, we will still be in conversation with one of our guests who wants to talk about how we really need to help humanity in times of crisis. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning. Happy Friday.
कुछ जुल्म थी देखे से एक आग लगी सीने में मिलकर जो बने थे ताकत जब मकसद था जीने में जब पास नजरिया था अपने फिर रोक सका ना कोई यूं पाकिस्तान बना था
Hey, you guys are still here? Well, thank you very much for staying tuned to PTV World. You watching World this morning. For everybody who just tuned in, ladies and gentlemen, with me, I'm very lucky to have my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajar Sati. I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan, and hum aapki khidmat mein hazir hain. But yes, before I speak any further, we really need to kind of talk about over here whether how really we can help the humanity, in the present crisis when we talk about Pakistan. Because let me reiterate upon the figures. So imagine that it is almost when we talk about people who have been affected, it's almost somewhat around 3.3 million. And when, in addition to that, imagine 165 or more bridges have been broken. The infrastructure is not in a way or shape where a lot of people have access to a lot of different places, people living in the remote areas. It's a difficult, it's a few difficult days these days.
Right, Shahzad, and I just wanted to add into the conversation. So it's 33 million people who are affected.
33, yes.
One over third country is submerged into the water. Pakistan is suffering from the worst ever flooding of the epochal proportions, never experienced before, and that is why we are having the United Nations Secretary General over here, because he wanted to assess how much damage has been caused. And Sindh and Balochistan, Shahzad, is just one big ocean, because there's so much water submerged, which has submerged our two biggest provinces. And it's not just the Sindh, Balochistan, it's all four provinces, Gilgit-Baltistan, who are under the wrap of this spell, which is so vicious, which is so much monstrous when it comes to its intensity, which never experienced that before. And our climate change minister very aptly mentioned that we need the restructuring of the global financial institutions so that they help us out in this calamity, because this problem is not of our own making in the first place.
Exactly.
Pakistan is not less than 1% contributor of the global climate emissions, yet fifth most affected when it comes to the climate change.
I mean, we still really need to think whether even if we are a contributor or not, say if the contribution is somewhat around 0.02 or 0.03, that certainly does not count as a contributor even, because I have heard a lot of people saying on television that we're not a major contributor, we're not even a minor contributor. And let's put it that way. But I really want to highlight the role of United Nations Secretary General, who's actually visiting Pakistan, because he's the one who's been telling the rest of the world that the world needs to come together, because the catastrophe Pakistan is going through is not Pakistan made. It's not nature made. It is made by the people who live within the developed countries, and it's the developed countries who've really made Pakistan suffer, and they really need to come together to make sure that, they're going to help Pakistan so that we revive out of this crisis. It's, when we talk about the losses, almost $12 billion losses have incurred when we talk about the infrastructure, the economical structure in different areas. Imagine the children not going to school, out of school. Imagine for all of that pressure we have on healthcare systems as of now, because everybody's just falling ill because all of that water which is still there, so we really do not have all of those wetlands where we can take that water away. Where do you think that water is going to go? So it's going to be there for a longer period of time, and we certainly are not sure whether what's going to happen the next year or the year after that. So everybody needs to come together. But before we do that, before everybody kind of has this consciousness to themselves that we really need to do something for Pakistan, we Pakistanis have to do something for our brethren. We really need to gel in. A lot of people, even the overseas Pakistanis, have been contributing quite a lot. So without any further ado, what can we do to help all of those people in these difficult times is something which we are discussing. We're lucky enough that we have been joined by somebody who happens to be former United Nations Information Officer. He happens to be Mr. Muhammad Abdul Wahab Sahab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so
And
much.
thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. Alongside him, we are lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be a social activist, a human rights activist, and she is Ms. Anjum Anwar. Hello, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Absolutely perfect, and thank you very much for joining us. So let's get started, sir. The topic is very simple.
Yeah.
I want you to speak about that before all the nations kind of put their head together and decide that, okay, hey, you know what, it is because of us that Pakistan is suffering through so many problems. $12 billion in losses, imagine. You know, it's even higher than our reserves. So
Yeah.
please go ahead, let's talk about
You
it.
know, Shahzad, this catastrophe is of perhaps one of the highest proportions, you know. The thing is, when you are confronted with a bigger challenge, you have to respond equally, with the same will, with the same magnanimity, with the same level of efforts. In a way, we are experienced as well, because it's the third major disaster we have seen during last almost 17 to 18
2005, 2010,
years.
2020.
Exactly. So in a way, we are a bit prepared. In 2005, we were not prepared at all. What has to happen? It is really heartening to note that not only United Nations, but a large number of countries, they have come up with their promises. Not only promises, many of them have already dispatched that financial support translated into commodities, you see. And we have seen already, footages that help has started arriving. What we have to do? Individually, we have to give maximum, we have to lend maximum support to all those organs of the state which are busy on ground to mitigate the sufferings of the population. As you have already described, almost, in my opinion, 3/4 of the Pakistani land is submerged, you see. Wherever crops were, houses were, every inch of the land is inundated.
1/3, yeah.
True.
So what we have to do now, as an individual, I won't recommend that everybody starts collecting goods and starts going to those areas. This is not the right strategy.
So what is the right strategy?
The right strategy is we have almost 8 to 15 major helping hands, major not only donors, but those who have got all the paraphernalia to operate in the field.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what has been happening during last 1 month, every Tom, Dick and Harry gets a pickup filled with the stuff, water, milk, whatsoever, lentils, rice, flour, and we start going to the areas. What happens? NDMA is supposed to issue guidelines on a daily basis. Well, these are the 80 districts of Pakistan.
Yep.
District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they need help. 9, 10, 11 don't. We provided yesterday. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 need to be helped immediately. Rest tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So that all those goods need to come to a single place. Therefrom, a single authority has to take decisions how to get them distributed. Because government alone can't do this.
True.
And NGOs alone can't do this.
True.
Both have to sit under one shelter and both have to work hand in hand. At the same time, what is happening? A number of friends of mine, they wanted to go. They went as well. They were stopped on the way and they said, okay, you see, we will take care of it. What happened? ABC, politically responsible of the areas, they took the goods, we will distribute. We know, you don't know.
Yeah.
If you go, they will attack you. Because the reason was, say, if there are 500 people in front of you and your pickup is hardly catering for 10 or say 100
people or
people, what
50
is going to happen? So they take, but unfortunately, they don't distribute well. Even if they distribute, perhaps they distribute on the basis of their personal links, you see. So what has to happen? We have to be extremely efficient. We have to be extremely responsible. Sluggishness or inactive approach won't do anything. People are dying because so many diseases have broken out already. Cholera is threatening the lives of people. The reason being there is no potable water on ground. You see,
Exactly. And sir, we will come back to that too as well. I want to move on to Miss Anjum over here. So now, ma'am, obviously, Abdul Wahab Sahab has mentioned it very aptly that this is what we really need to do, and that's how we really need to make sure that we are helping all of those people who are out there, you know, who certainly are in the need of all of these donations and all of those clothes and medicines which are going out. Speaking of water, which is one. But now when we talk about all of these issues, in imparting our responsibilities is something we really need to keep a check on. How do you think that, you know, as a human rights activist, as a social activist, you keep a check on all of these organizations, whether the organizations we have been trusting, whether they are doing what they were telling us that they will be doing?
Well, it's a very good question, and thank you for asking that. And that is very, very important question as well.
Thank you.
Because you know, there's so many organizations out there, they're trying to help, but how do you figure out, or how do you know which organization is genuine and actually trying to
Yeah,
help?
because we certainly do not get any feedback. See, we do not have any communication with the people who live in those areas.
And like he said, that a lot of it is going on, and I've heard it myself, that people are basically helping those they know somehow, or they have some links with,
Yeah.
but the people who are genuinely affected or need help are being ignored. So I feel like that you know, people should do their part. They should research, because the donation you give, it's very important that you give it to the organization that you trust. And how do you trust an organization?
So that it gets to the people who needs it the most.
Yes, but even if you're giving it to an organization, it's your duty, I believe, to make sure that that organization that you are trusting, you have done your due diligence, you have done your research, and made sure that every money that, or every help or goods or whatever you're giving to this organization is being sent to the needy. And that's a big responsibility, I believe, lies upon an individual, especially in the time of needs. You know, there's certain theories out there. Some people say that, you know, we have just given it for Allah, and then, you know, we have done our part, and the rest is up to the organization. But I don't personally agree with that.
Okay.
Because, you know, when we are giving it zakat or whatever, sadaqah, then it's our job, or even donation, to make sure that that organization on ground is working. And there's a number of ways you can do that. You can look at their numbers. You can even, the donors can even ask their numbers, you know, if they're registered. A lot of people out there are collecting money, but how do you trust, you know, that money is being sent to the needy? So make sure that, you know, the organization is registered properly. They don't have any scandals. The people who are heading the organization are trustworthy, and they don't have any scandals or any you know,
dubious
embezzlement of funds
background
or whatnot.
yeah.
So it's very, very important, and I think there's a number of ways they can do it, and these are some of the ways they can do.
Yes, I do understand that, and like we alluded to this fact earlier on, that there are 33 million people who are affected by these flooding. Of course, our government was prepared, but this sort of the calamity, the magnitude of the water that crept into Pakistan is just unimaginable, right? And there comes a space for a lot of aid workers, humanitarian helpers who can dispense the aid. But what if someone does not have money? Is it just the monetary aid that needs to flow in? What if someone does not have the money, but that person has the courage or the zeal to help out? So what is the way for that person?
Well, like, you know, people can go actually and donate their time. You know, that is equally important and valuable. That obviously a lot of volunteers needed. But as he said, that, you know, those efforts should be collaborated efforts. Any Tom, Dick and Harry should not get up and go to, you know, Sindh or Balochistan or whatnot.
We might be short of time, but why not? You know, if I intend to go and help people, you know, that's my responsibility. Why should we label them as Tom, Dick and Harry? I'm against that. I'm very sorry for that.
That's
But
I agree with that, yeah.
anybody who intends to go help, you know, they
Right.
should go. Even just sitting down with people, sharing their burden of what they're going through is help. You know, so, and it is totally dependent. It obviously will transcend from Allah Almighty, whether how Allah Almighty decides to bless you.
Let
You
me
know,
clarify.
Yeah, please.
Shahzad, basically, you are right. I mean, in fact, every one of us at this moment, everyone, we are yearning, you know, to leave our homes, go there, whatever we have, support them. Thing is, as I said earlier, we need to have coordinated efforts, right?
Just like what Ma'am said.
For
yes.
example, we are 4 individuals. Each one of us decides to go in the field and support. So what happens? You end up in Rajanpur, she ends up in, say, Sangar, she ends up in
Dadu.
other part of
Hyderabad.
Exactly. And what happens, we go alone, perhaps with a truckload of a pickup,
Right.
and we don't know which village we should go, where that aid has to be taken. So basically what happens, the best thing is, do volunteer your time with a bigger organization. I don't want to name them because perhaps naming them won't be good here. But let me tell you, there are at least 5 to 7 top good ones who are really doing great work. Footages are there. They will help you to identify. They have got track record. She was very right when she said, you have to see they're registered and they have good track record. Clips of 2005 earthquake would help you, those who were mostly active. At the same time, what I would say, look, our media has to play the role. So far, our media has not been able to portray the efforts of those NGOs from those troubled areas. The more footages we have, the more knowledge we have, who we have to support most and who we have to volunteer time with.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vahab Sahab. Thank you very much, Ms. Sanjam, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And for everybody who's out there, yes, that's right. Coordinated efforts really need to be made so that we know which area needs the most help and which area needs what. That's something very important, that beforehand we should know what are the requirements of the people of that local area, what do they want from us, rather than just, putting in everything and just going and then making sure that, God forbid, all of that stuff which you have taken, they might not even need it and it goes to waste, which could have been utilized with the other population in some other area.
Right, and in my experience, it's better to incorporate the help of the Army, Navy or Air Force, because they're very actively supporting the people on the ground, and of course the other big names, the NGOs that you trust, can go there. So until next time, it's a wrap.
And in addition to that, please, if you want to donate, this Prime Minister Flood Relief Fund, G12164 is the account number. Please donate generously as well. And not just that, if you want to donate 10 rupees, please write fund, type fund and just send it to 9999. And yes, obviously you will play your role as a Pakistani in helping other Pakistanis. Good morning. Jummah Mubarak. Hum sabko duaon mein yaad rakhein. Jazakallah.